Today on the show, how Country Time could pay your kids legal fees if they're busted with a lemonade stand, and the 18-year-old rapper that could be going to jail for 10 years because of what they posted on Soundcloud.
Can't you see? Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
Let's go!
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is a no, and a new future is born!
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, it's almost a rite of passage. Did you have a ridiculous job over the summer when you were a kid? You might be thinking to yourself, but when I was a kid, I have a ridiculous job now. Soul-destroying drudgery in the workplace day in and day out. Well, what about when I was a kid? Well, I'm talking specifically about the kids that you see now hitting summer vacation and learning what it is to make their way in the world by putting some shekels in their pocket based on their hard work. I think it's such a character building thing. A kid cousin of mine who is a kid with a brain the size of a planet is doing some work at McDonald's. And I think that's awesome because, well, here's the thing. He's going to learn what it's like to stand on his feet all day. He's going to learn what it's like to work really, really hard and not necessarily get paid that much cash. And if you've made a career working at McDonald's or a place like McDonald's, I'm not knocking that. But I'm just saying that it's an important and character building thing for a person to have a McJob in the broadest sense of the term McJob when they're a kid. Teaches you stuff. What do you think the worst job you ever had was? I got to tell you, when I was a teenager, 16, I had a job washing dishes, and I had a great time. I learned a lot. You want to know why? Because I saw all sorts of people working in this little restaurant. It was a lunchtime spot for business types in London where I grew up, and I saw all sorts of people working there. I saw people my age or a little older that were waiting tables while they worked through college. I saw some people that had never really figured life out or what they wanted to do with their life that were in their late 30s and 40s, and they hated what they were doing. I know a lot of people that love being waiters. One of my best friends is a career waiter, and before I really knew I was going to be in radio and I was trying to figure things out, I asked him, I was like, you're a waiter. I used to be a guy in a band. Now I'm 23 years old and my resume says guy in band. You seem to do okay at this. Could I make a living doing this? Because I don't really know what to do. My resume says guy in band and I don't have a group anymore. I've been living on a tour bus for the last 5 years. What the hell am I going to do with myself? He's like, yeah, be a waiter. It's great. Ultimately, it's the best job in the world because I bring people food and they give me money because they're happy. And he loves it, and he's done really well at it over the years. He has a wife, he has a house, he has a kid, and it's all based on that. I did not do so well. I think you have to be the right sort of person to do well at that sort of thing. I would spend like 12 hours on my feet and walk out of there with $9 and be like, evidently I don't do this right. I'm not making people happy because they're not giving me money. So there you go. Wasn't good for me. But I saw people in this kitchen that were in their 30s, in their 40s, hated what they were doing, but continued to do it because that's all they knew. And I was like, don't end up like that person. Okay. I learned that actions speak so much louder than words in life and in the workplace. I was working in this kitchen, washing dishes, and I learned that actions speak so much louder than words. And I learned that losing your cool equals weakness. I'll never forget. I saw this new chef come in. And he seemed like the bomb. We loved him. He was charismatic. He was inspirational. He instantly had our loyalty after giving the whole staff a pep talk about his kitchen and how it was going to be run and how it was going to be the greatest, happiest, most efficient kitchen ever. Inspiring stuff. And what do you think of the new guy? Oh, I think he's awesome. I want to be just like him when I grow up. And then on day 2, I saw him completely lose the belief and loyalty of his staff when he lost his mind and started screaming about how a dish called Coronation Chicken, which is something they do in England, you should try it if you get a chance, it's delicious, was a little slow to arrive. He blew it. He established trust. He gained and lost the confidence and belief and respect of the people around him in 24 short hours. It was quite the roller coaster ride. And it taught me, like I said, that your actions speak louder than words in these situations. And it taught me that when you lose your cool in the workplace, it doesn't make you look tough. It doesn't make you look strong. It makes you look weak. Anyways, that's an aside. I even got propositioned by an older woman who was a waitress there. Yeah, I was 16 and she was in her 30s, I think, which is actually legal in England, or at least it was at the time. 16 was the age of consent in England back in the day, and I believe it still is now. So she wasn't doing anything illegal when she asked me if I wanted to come over to her place after work. Did I take her up on it? Oh, man. Well, like I said, I did learn a lot working at this kitchen.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So like you and I were saying, summer jobs are great. They can teach you an awful lot. You see them. You see the students starting to file into your local places of business, working their summer jobs, working their MIC jobs, as they might be in some cases. And they're character building things that teach you stuff about the world and how it works and the people in it. It's a little bit of life with training wheels for a teenager to get a summer job. And like I was saying, one of my most eye-opening jobs that I had when I was a teenager was washing dishes in this kitchen. Had a great time. Learned a lot. This little business lunch place in London where I grew up, saw all sorts of people there. I saw some people like me that were sort of working their way through college or school, my age or so. I saw some people, and you know, when I was 16, I said I was in college. In England, they do things a little bit differently. You finish school when you're younger, and then you go to a different place, which they call college. To us, it's more like the 11th and 12th grade. And then you go to university if you want to continue with further education. But yeah, I saw people that were working their way through college. I saw some people that had never really figured life out or what they wanted to do with it, that were older in their 30s and 40s, and they hated what they were doing, but they continued to do it because that's all they knew. And I learned that I didn't want to be them. I learned that action speaks so much louder than words in the workplace, and I learned that losing your cool equals weakness. When this new chef came in, gave the whole staff a pep talk about how this was going to be the greatest, happiest, most well-run kitchen ever, completely gained all of our confidence, and then on his second day, he completely lost his rag and the belief and loyalty of his staff. That was an important one, learning that blowing your cool, screaming and yelling equals weakness in the eyes of people around you, oftentimes. And like I said, it was quite a roller coaster ride. I got propositioned by an older woman who was a waitress there. I was 16, which was legal at the time in England. That was the age of consent. I believe it still is. She was in her 30s, and she asked me if I wanted to come over to her place after work. I was too young to know what to do with that. So I was like, no, sorry, I got to get home to my mom and dad. And did not have a formative experience in that department. But this brief stint as a dishwasher was a formative experience for me. It was an eye-opener for a young AD. A kitchen is sort of a microcosm of society. You see all sorts of examples of human behavior on display in a 9-hour work period. And I didn't love touching the food that other people had eaten while I was washing dishes. That skeeved me the hell out. And I absolutely didn't love the way those big industrial dishwashing machines that they have in kitchens would burn the crap out of your fingers when you picked dishes up after they became clean, because they involve cleaning temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. But I did learn to love one aspect of doing dishes. And I still love this aspect of doing dishes today. I don't love doing the dishes. I don't love it when there's a big pile of gross, dirty dishes in the kitchen sink. But I do love doing dishes for one thing, one aspect of doing dishes. I like doing dishes Because as I learned back then, after a big lunchtime rush, when there's a massive pile of dirty dishes, this gross, insurmountable task that you absolutely have no interest in partaking in, as much as it seems like it's just too much to handle, I love the aspect of doing dishes because you start and almost immediately you see the pile get smaller. And you put the clean dishes in a different place and you see the effect of your work right there in front of you. You see results almost immediately. This odious task that you have to perform, it's in front of you and you don't want to do it and you don't want to do it and you avoid doing it and you go, I'll do them tomorrow. I'll look after the dishes later, or whatever the case may be with your particular approach to doing the dishes. But once you start, you see the effects, you see the results, and well, you get it done. And that taught me when I was a kid, that taught me that to do anything, there's one very important thing that you must do. If you want to achieve anything in life, whatever it is, whatever you need or want to do in your life, maybe you need to get a better job. You want to get a better job. You want to get something that's more fulfilling, that puts more cash in your pocket, whatever the case may be. Maybe you want a better relationship. Maybe you want a better relationship with the person you love or the people you love. Maybe you want to be closer to your family. Maybe you've got kids and you don't feel like you're involved enough in their lives. Maybe you've got kids and you got to have a difficult conversation with them. Maybe you need to make more money. Maybe you need to go back to school. Maybe you need to go to school at all in the first place. Maybe you just want to learn how to play the freaking piano. I don't know. I don't know what it is you want to do. I don't know where it is you're trying to go with your life. But there's one very important thing that I do know. No matter what it is, no matter what you want to see, do, achieve in life, you got to start. That's what those dishes taught me. This massive, filthy, disgusting pile of food encrusted, been in other people's mouths, awfulness that it was my job to do. And it seemed like there were so many dishes there, they were never going to get washed. But ultimately, you pick up one plate, you rinse it off, you put it in the dishwasher, and then it emerges sparkling and clean a little while after. There's one very big barrier to getting anything done in life, and that's not doing it. So, as I go out into the world and see these kids doing what they're doing for their summer jobs, it's a reminder to me that no matter what it is I want to do, the main thing holding me back is if I don't start.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So I got to tell you, this is pretty good marketing for a pretty good cause. When you were a kid, did you ever start a small business? I mean, the most obvious one would be a lemonade stand. Did you ever sell lemonade as a child to make a little money? Kids still do it today sometimes, but less and less because it's sort of well known at this stage in the game. You can get into legal trouble as a child for doing it. It feels like every summer we hear stories about overzealous government agents shutting down some kid's lemonade stand over permits or health regulations or things of that nature, or not paying taxes, or, well, I mean, look, stories like this one are all too familiar.
We've never had a lemonade stand. I wanted to teach my kids about being an entrepreneur, having your own business. So we got out a table, we made some lemonade, and all the boys helped, and we went out there. The police officers came over, and they said that because my boys and I did not have permits for a lemonade stand, they shut us down, and we had to stop immediately. My boys were crushed. They were devastated, and I can't believe it happened. It made me want to cry. They were crying. They were so upset.
Denver mom Jennifer Knowles talking about how her 3 boys in Denver recently got their lemonade stand shut down by the cops because they didn't have a permit. Now, did you have a lemonade stand when you were a kid? I did not, but I didn't get to have one because my neighbors got shut down. I wanted to make one. I don't even know where I got the notion to make one. I just thought it would be a good way to get as much lemonade as I wanted. I had one of those moms that was all about reading the ingredients in the stuff that we were eating. And going, artificial colors, artificial sugar, artificial colors, artificial flavor, too much sugar. No, you're not having this. You can have half a glass, but that's it. And I love delicious lemonade. And I remember, I think it was, did Country Time make iced tea? I don't know, but there was a powdered Country Time lemonade thing in the pantry and a powdered iced tea mix in the pantry as well. And if I ever got to have a glass of that stuff, I was over the moon. I think my dad liked to keep it around the house for himself, and I very rarely got to partake. But when I did, it was happy time. So I saw that kids got to have lemonade stands, and I was like, I don't necessarily care about the money, but it means I can drink delicious lemonade all summer long. There's no way my mom can keep track of how much of this stuff I'm drinking if I'm selling it to other people. This is going to be fantastic. And I think my parents were sort of amused by the idea that I wanted to start a business. And they sort of encouraged the entrepreneurial spirit and the get up and go that it took for a child to do this. They didn't realize that I had the ulterior motive of just wanting to drink as much lemonade as possible as a kid. But my mom told me no. And the reason she told me no was because the neighbor kids next door lemonade stand got shut down. And well, it was for these reasons. So this is pretty good marketing. And it's for, I think, a good cause. I don't know if you ever tried to sell lemonade as a kid to make a little money. Kids do it less and less today. And the reason they do it less and less is because they run into legal trouble. In some areas, it's technically illegal to sell lemonade without a permit. And paying for the permit for your kids' lemonade stands cuts into the profits to the point where it makes the entire thing pointless. Absolutely freaking pointless. There are plenty of killjoy jerks out there who are going to report you. Just last month, those kids, like I said, in Denver got shut down by the cops, even though they were raising money for charity. Yeah, a charity lemonade stand got shut down. So the folks over at Country Time Lemonade, and like I said, this is excellent marketing for them because people are going to be talking about this all over the country. The company that makes Country Time Lemonade just launched a new website called Country Time Legal Aid. Yeah. The upshot is this. If your kids get fined for selling lemonade without a permit, the makers of Country Time Lemonade will cover it. Yeah. There you go. If your kid can't sell lemonade without a permit this summer, they're going to pay to cover the cost of the fine or the permit up to $300. Check this out.
Around the country, kids are getting busted for running lemonade stands. Entrepreneurship, good work habits, good old-fashioned fun, shut down because of old, arcane, but very real laws. To kids like Autumn Thomason.
My lemonade stand got shut down because I didn't have a permit. It was unfair.
She's 6. It's happening everywhere. No, seriously, look it up. But this summer, things are going to be different because Country Time is introducing Legal Aid, a crack team ready to straighten out lemonade stand-related permits and fines, making sure no kid is denied their right to a lemonade stand and all the benefits they bestow.
If you have a problem with your lemonade stand, the offices of Country Time Legal Aid
are ready to take a stand for you.
Tastes like justice.
So, when life gives you arcane laws, make lemonade.
We're here for you!
And get your permits and fines paid at countrytimelegalaid.com.
So what's the fine print of this situation? Well, here's the deal. They've announced via their official Twitter that kids across the country are getting busted for operating lemonade stands without a permit. We're taking the lead to hashtag save lemonade stands by paying for kids' fines and permits this year. For every retweet this gets, we're going to donate $1 up to $500,000 to help kids next year and beyond. According to their website, they're going to cover fines or fees up to $300 per child. The company has budgeted $60,000, enough to help at least 200 kids this year for the program, which runs through August. But the tweet says Country Time is prepared to create a fund of up to $500,000 to help more kids in future summers. The folks over at Adweek said it's a clever way for the brand to capitalize on real events. Just over Memorial Day weekend, for example, three brothers, the ones that we heard from, ages 2 to 6, and their mother raising money for charity, were forced to close up shop. Interestingly enough, though, you know why they were forced to close up shop? I mean, obviously because someone narked them out. But what happened was this. Vendors with permits at the park where they were set up complained to police that the boys were undercutting their prices. If you can be put out of business by a 6-year-old with a can of drink mix, it might be time to rethink a couple of things, but I digress. I mean, look, that's entrepreneurship, and that is, well, you know, something that I have a hard time knocking. But I just couldn't, if I was those people, I just could not find a way to report 6-year-olds. Couldn't find a way to report 6-year-olds to the cops. Anyways, it's clearly a win-win for Country Time, which gets to celebrate in its cornerstone product and all the wholesome values that it wants to represent without much real financial skin in the game. Yeah, $50,000 or $60,000 allocated to helping out kids this summer, but a fund of $500,000 to help more kids in the future. What do you reckon? Did you ever try and set up something like this? Did you ever try and set up some sort of business? Like I said, I wanted to set up a lemonade stand when I was a child, but I wasn't allowed to because the kids next door got shut down. So there you have it. I did have this thing where I offered to do like my dad's shoes. Like I would shine my dad's shoes in exchange for some money. And well, the problem is when you only have access to one person that will pay you money to shine their shoes, it becomes more like something that you do in exchange for allowance. So my shoe shine business did not really take off in the way I had hoped. And I'd wanted to take my shoe shine business to the streets, but yeah, not so much. My parents weren't having me trolling the streets with a rag and a can of boot blacking. So it never really worked out for me. On the one hand, I get it. On the other hand, learning about, do you remember that video game? There was a Lemonade video game. What was this thing? If you played it, please tell me what it was. At ADSXE is where you can tweet me, or you can hit me up there on Instagram as well, at ADSXE. But there was that video game where you started a business, like a lemonade business. You had a lemonade stand. You spent this much on the makings of lemonade, you spent this much on lemons, this much on sugar. If you wanted to make your lemonade taste sweeter and better, you could double up on the sugar, but that was going to eat into your profits. You'd experience rainy days. There was this virtual game of entrepreneurship that I played on the computer growing up, and it was a lemonade stand. It did actually teach you a couple of things about the economics of life and why things weren't necessarily always as simple as you thought they were. What was that game? Did you play it? Like I said, at ADSXE if you did. I have to be honest. While I think the idea of shutting down kids' lemonade stands is absolutely ridiculous, in some senses, it does teach kids a little bit about the real world. Oh, you want to do something? Well, as it turns out, you can't just go and do it. The government is a greedy piglet that will suckle at your financial nipple until it is chapped and sore, and you don't want to get your nipple out anymore. Or you know, some sort of analogy that makes more sense to a 6-year-old. But whatever the case may be, letting kids have a free pass when it comes to doing business is a great thing because, well, it teaches kids some get up and go and some chutzpah and some wanting to make their way in the world and seeing that there's a way to do that. And shutting it down before they have a chance to get going is a crusher of dreams and a crusher of ambition. But on the other hand, I do kind of feel like giving kids a hard lesson in the fact that the government is going to get in the way at every single turn. And if you want to succeed in this world, you're going to have to figure out how to account for that. It would be an important thing. But at 6, that's a difficult concept to lay on a kid. So the fact that hard work equals money is often the better way to go, I think. You can introduce them to the egregious concepts of Uncle Scam a little later on in life. I got to tell you, the one thing that I had any real sort of success with as an entrepreneur was when I was like, I don't know, I think 11 or 12. I played drums since I was 4 years old. I started playing drums when I was 4 years old. I told my parents that I liked Animal on the Muppet Show. And for my 4th birthday, I came downstairs and there was a drum kit there. My dad used to play drums, so I thought he thought it would be a cool thing to do. We could learn how to play drums together, or he could learn again how to play drums with me. And man, it was the greatest. And I wound up getting a scholarship to go to a music conservatory, which I completely blew off because I was in this screaming punk rock band at the time, and we got a record deal. And if you ask a 16-year-old kid what he'd rather have, a tour bus or a dorm room, tour bus wins every single time. It will always win. I don't know if you're raising a kid and this will ever become an issue, but tour bus will win every single time. But I did find that learning how to play the drums was kind of cool. My mom, the teeny little allowance I got, my mom would break down into days. And it was such a pittance. It was such a pittance of an allowance. It was so much less than what my friends got. And, if I was to ask for any additional money for something special, it was always sort of like noted in a ledger. My mom was pretty strict with that stuff, and I thank her for it now in retrospect. At the time, it seemed kind of harsh, but I had these lists of things that I had to do when I was a kid, and one of them was be on time for the school bus. If I wasn't on time for the school bus, if I was running for the school bus, or if I made the school bus driver wait at all for me, then that day of allowance got docked. And I've been an insomniac since I was about 8 years old. So as a consequence, I fell asleep very late and I woke up very late, and I was almost never on time for the bus. And I was winding up with no allowance at the end of every single week. But one thing I could do was I could play the drums. And I'd done enough sort of like school plays and things like that and talent shows to where other kids that wanted to learn how to play the drums would come up to me and be like, how do you do that? And I was like, you really want to learn? Yeah. You want to take lessons? Sure. And it was ethical enough for me at that point to be giving beginner drum lessons. So at lunchtime, I would go down to the music room and I would have students. And I think I would charge them not much money in England, like £10 a pop for, I don't know, like 45-minute drum lesson. And what does that equal? Like $15? Not bad, really, when you think about it. But I would have sometimes 2 students a day, one at lunchtime, one after school. And I was making sort of £10 a day doing this. 5 days of the week equals, at the end of the week, I had £100. And it made me go, I can kind of sleep through my alarm and be as late as I want for the bus and, do way better financially than I was doing waiting on an allowance. And I told my mom this a couple of years ago, and she was like, the whole making the bus driver wait thing, the whole making me nervous about you being late for school thing, that was never really the point. But the point was to teach you that if you wanted money, there was going to be a productive way that you could apply yourself and get that money. And you know what? At the time, I remember it feeling pretty liberating, like I could flaunt my mom's rules, and my skill and my hard work and my tenacity allowed me to write my own rules. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was playing into my mother's plan in terms of teaching me how to make my way in the world perfectly. And for that, I thank my mom. For that and so many things, I thank my mom. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. Hey, what do you think God looks like? Apparently, the vast majority of us think that God looks like, wait for it, a young Brad Pitt. True story. How do we know? We'll get into it next.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio. 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Hey, what do you think God looks like? Some people that have near-death experiences claim to have seen the face of God. Some people that have religious epiphanies claim to have seen the face of God. But in your mind, what do you think God looks like? For me, this goes back to childhood and seeing old school paintings of, God touching the finger of day. I always assumed that God had a beard. Didn't necessarily know. what the rest of the facial features really entailed, but a beard was always part of the equation with God, which meant, I guess, that thanks to classic paintings, I grew up feeling like God was male. I guess if God was one of us, he really would just be a stranger on the bus, only because a new study at the University of North Carolina asked over 500 Christians, these are people that definitely believe in God, what they think God looks like. And the answer is pretty basic: white dude. Yeah, God to most Christians is a white dude. But there's a composite sketch that's been created of God based on the description of him that they've been given by the people that they asked. I'm going to tweet this out. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to tweet out the picture, the sort of composite sketch of God's facial features that people assume that it is. The best comparison that we saw of this picture, I'm curious to know what you think it looks like. The best comparison we saw is to a young Brad Pitt. Yeah. According to the description given to this study by 500 Christians, God looks like a young Brad Pitt. If you look at the photo, and please look where I tweeted, but if you look at the photo, some people also think that it looks like Jimmy Fallon. Go figure. Yeah, God looks like Brad Pitt or Jimmy Fallon. I suppose if you asked older people, they might think that it was a Brad Pitt equivalent, like a young Brando or something like that, or a young James Dean. But yeah, people think Brad Pitt, young Brad Pitt, Jimmy Fallon, or interestingly enough, Elon Musk or Val Kilmer. Yeah, Val Kilmer. Oh, by the way, if you are looking for a summer movie to watch, do yourself a favor, revisit a Val Kilmer classic that if you didn't see the first time out is just as awesome and hilarious today as it was back then. There was a time when all these science movies were being made when we were kids in the 80s and 90s. There was sort of like Weird Science and Misfits of Science, Revenge of the Nerds, kind of sort of a little bit. But there was also one that kind of sort of got overlooked. And if you ask me, it was the best of the bunch. And it's a great movie that completely stands up today. I'm talking, of course, about Real Genius with Val Kilmer. It's a fantastic film. And if you haven't seen it yet, you are absolutely missing out. Do yourself a favor. Check out a young Val Kilmer and watch the movie Real Genius. And apparently you're also going to be looking at the face of God, kind of, sort of, although, yeah, young Brad Pitt. The study also found that the person that God looks like the most is you, at least in your eyes. Yeah, the person God looks like the most is you in your eyes. The researchers say that, quote, older participants saw an older God. More attractive participants saw a more attractive, good-looking God. And African Americans saw, well, this is interesting, African Americans only saw a marginally more African American God, which meant that to a lot of the people that were African American that were studied, God is a white guy, which is, well, I don't know. What was that whole thing about God making man in his image? I always sort of, I guess once I got beyond the idea of God having a beard, thanks to old school paintings, I sort of thought that God, and that line about him making man in his image, would appear to you as yourself if he was ever to appear to you or she was ever to appear to you. That's sort of what I thought, that you being a reflection of God, God would reflect back at you if you ever got a chance to lay eyes upon him. But yeah, the only thing that everyone had in common was that no matter who it was that was being asked, whether they were male, female, black, white, whatever the case may be, the one thing that every single Christian, when asked, believed about God is that everyone pictured God as being male, which, yeah, it's a little weird to me. Anyways, the average God face plus a young Brad Pitt and a Jimmy Fallon for comparison. I've tweeted this out. Do me a favor at ADSXE and weigh in. You know what an interesting question is? If you know Brad Pitt or Jimmy Fallon, do you still think that looks like the face of God? According to David Spade, his grandma would think so.
Brad Pitt went to my school. Brad Pitt, for 1 year, went to my school. And he was a little lady killer back then. He was a good-looking kid, I'm telling you. Even back then, you could tell he was a cutie, because I remember when I got my class picture and I brought it home. I was staying with my grandma, so she was checking it out, and she was looking at it. She goes, "Oh my gosh, Davey, you have to be the cutest boy in that whole gall darn." Oh my God, I that kid. Holy, you know this dude? Hook me up, I'm your grandma. take care of me. I used to take care of you. Do something for me. That kid is a piece of Oh my God. I want to get in there and do some damage. Rattle it around. I know tricks.
So the SoundCloud rapper. If you're like me and everybody else, you know at least one of them. Everybody knows a SoundCloud rapper. That kid in your school, or that guy in the club, or that person at your job saying, what you don't know about me is I rap. I'm a great rapper. You should definitely check me out on SoundCloud. And of course, this is probably the last thing that you should do if you value your time anyway. As a guy that is vaguely associated with the music industry, I've been deluged with SoundCloud rapper requests, and I have to tell people I don't work in the world of hip-hop. But because I want to be nice and I want to do the right thing, and I really can't knock anyone's hustle, and if I can't help someone get where they're going in this world, I'll listen, and I've listened to some phenomenally bad hip-hop on SoundCloud over the last couple of years. But apparently being a SoundCloud rapper is serious business, only because there's a SoundCloud rapper, an 18-year-old kid from New Jersey, who posted a song on SoundCloud and could now wind up spending 10 years in prison over a song. Yeah. How is this possible? How could an 18-year-old aspiring rapper that posted a song on SoundCloud winding up spending 10 years in jail? It's an interesting one, to be sure. It sets a very different kind of legal precedent, and we'll discuss all of this next. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So you and I will talk in just a little bit about how an 18-year-old aspiring rapper might be going to jail for 10 years because of a song that he posted on SoundCloud. How is this possible? Depending on what happens, this will wind up setting up a very interesting legal precedent, and we'll get into it in just a little bit after we discuss what's going on in the world. Let's take a look at the events of today in our segment, My Witness News. The man with the world's largest junk has said that it prevented him from getting any major movie roles. Oh, this is actually fascinating stuff. This guy's been on TV a little bit here and there, but he's making a bit of a splash at the moment, and not just when he visits the John. You might have caught him in the past, but he's this dude. What's his name? Jonah Falcon. And he's 47 years old, and he'd like to be an actor. There's just one problem. He's already kind of famous for supposedly having the world's largest junk. This means, how do I put this delicately? I would imagine most of the women that he's been would hope that he would put it delicately. It is allegedly, when good to go, ready for action, something that measures in at around 13 and a half inches. And he's actually said, this guy, Jonah Falcon, has said that it's been a handicap to an acting career, saying, quote, people won't hire me. They Google Jonah Falcon and then say we can't use him. He's known for this. It'll be a distraction to any production, television show, or movie that he's in. But apparently the supersized equipment has its perks. He said, quote, I've slept with celebrities, including Oscar nominees and Oscar winners. I can't talk about that. It wasn't Meryl Streep. Just leave it at that. Yeah, the man with the world's largest junk said while his junk has prevented him from getting into the movies, it's allowed him to get into Oscar winners, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. He adds, quote, most of the time they sought me out. One or two of them were at parties. I'm a unique property, I guess. He's bisexual, openly bisexual, by the way, so I guess he could be talking about women or men here. Come on, Frances McDormand. You know she's got that wild side. We don't know that. Anyways. But yeah, the man with the world's largest unit says that it's prevented him from getting any major movie roles. Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Ryan Reynolds, Chris Hemsworth, and Denzel Washington all declined to comment. In really rich people buying stuff news, Oprah Winfrey bought herself an island estate for $8 million. Yeah, she bought an island estate for $8 million. I will never have $8 million to buy an island estate with, but I'm kind of surprised that you can do that. I wonder if it's a private island. I don't know. I do know this, though. That's a little less than I thought you'd have to spend on an island estate. And also amount of money that I would imagine that she got going through her couch cushions. The folks over at Rolling Stone have made a list of the best comedies of the 21st century. Yeah, Rolling Stone made a list of the best comedies of the 21st century. I think the most hilarious thing that's happened with regard to Rolling Stone in the 21st century is they thought people would keep buying a paper and ink magazine in the digital era, but I digress. Rolling Stone has made a list of the best comedies of the 21st century. They left out the best one, Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Oh, man. Did you hear which beloved TV actor, someone that we grew up loving and watching on TV, is in jail at the moment? It's so strange because they played such a nice person on the show. You could never imagine them going to jail for something like this, as much as the character was always in trouble with the law. It's Bo Duke. Yeah, John Schneider, who played Bo Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard. He is serving a jail sentence at the moment for failure to pay spousal support. Yeah, John Schneider, who played Bo Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard, is serving a jail sentence for failure to pay spousal support. I guess the judge did not buy John's excuse that he was just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Happy birthday to Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who are 32 years old today. I believe that their birthday wish is to continue to be rich enough that they never have to appear on Fuller House. You remember that? You remember that there was going to be an appearance by the Olsen twins? You know, they kept talking about it like it was a possibility that the Olsen twins would come back to Fuller House, the Netflix reboot of Full House. And, well, they learned a couple of things. One, the Olsen twins would not come back. Two, nobody really cared about the Olsen twins there just because of Jodie Sweetin. Fuller House, more like Fuller Blouse, am I right? And we know that it's been successful because they're entering their 4th season. Yeah, I was amazed. You know, reunion shows tend to be good for one show. The fact that they did a whole season, well, you get to do that with Netflix. You know, you make a full season of something. You're not limited to, well, we'll do a couple of episodes and see if the show gets canceled. So they got to do a full season on Netflix, and I thought that was a cool thing. And then they got to do another one, and it looks like they're doing a 4th. So it is infinitely more successful than anyone possibly could have imagined. I watched every episode voraciously, reliving my childhood when the first season came out, and I lost interest when season number 2 came out. But apparently it's been enough to keep the franchise going, the level of interest. So if you're one of them, good for you. You get another season. Rapper Lil Kim has filed for bankruptcy. Yeah, Lil Kim has filed for bankruptcy. I didn't even know she wanted the president. Yeah, see what I did there? Yes, Lil Kim has filed for bankruptcy because I would imagine in the year 2018, her music draws little interest. Megyn Kelly. Things are not going well for Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly may soon be bumped from her Today Show time slot. Producers are blaming declining ratings, while Megyn, as always, somehow manages to blame immigrants. President Trump said Kim Jong-un was a funny guy. Yeah, one of the takeaways from the summit between the president of these United States of America, Donald Trump, and the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, in an historic meeting, the first time ever a North Korean leader had met with an American president. One of the takeaways from that, Kim Jong-un, apparently a funny guy. There you go. Probably hitting up open mic nights in Pyongyang under the moniker Slappy Jong-un. Oh, that was him. Bill Clinton has been touring around the country, not to promote his book, but mostly to avoid Hillary. That's not going well. It's not going well for him. I think we'll talk about that on the show tomorrow, but basically, the press has gone after him over Monica Lewinsky. And Monica Lewinsky, all these years later, must be having a bit of a moment with it. I don't know if she tries to ignore it or what, but I mean, bottom line is he got to go and continue being president of these United States of America. She found herself to be completely unavoidable anywhere in America. She had to become an entrepreneur because she couldn't get a job anywhere after everything that had happened. Whereas Bill Clinton's been just fine, but now he's on this book tour, and it has coincided, unfortunately, for Bill and his career as an author it's coincided with the Me Too movement, and people are going, hey, remember that thing where you did this with an intern and you got off scot-free and her life was forever changed and more or less ruined? How do you feel about that now? Do you think you would have been impeached successfully had it been in the wake of the Me Too movement? Have things changed? And Clinton has been doing a lousy job of fielding all of these questions. And you know what? It's good to put him in the hot seat. And it's good to come back and have a stab at him after he did essentially get away with doing something reproachable. Now, whether or not it was necessary for him to remain as the president of these United States of America during that time is not what's up for debate here. What's up for debate is the fact that his attitude to the whole thing was cavalier and set a horrible example for men everywhere across the world. And, well, it's good that finally there's a little bit of a comeuppance on this one. Rudy Giuliani reportedly had an affair with a married woman before he and his wife separated. Giuliani couldn't be reached for comment just because he was busy reminding us why we shouldn't listen to someone with dubious morals like, Stormy Daniels. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are back from their honeymoon. Yes, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are back from their honeymoon, and apparently they spent it relaxing and unwinding from their stressful life of relaxing and unwinding. The country's highest profile pimp is running for a seat in the Nevada legislature. It's got to be that Dennis Hoff guy, right? The dude from the Moonlight Bunny Ranch, the HBO show about them. He's been on a million different radio stations. I got hit up by his people a little while ago asking to be on this show. There was a thing once, I seem to remember, it was never anything I had something to do with, but I remember a station. I wasn't on the station at the time. I think maybe one of the stations I'm on, maybe the one in San Diego. I believe they had a thing back in the day where, thanks to Dennis Hoff and the Moonlight Bunny Ranch, you could enter a competition to lose your virginity. It was something like that. He is no stranger to sort of that sort of thing. It's got to be him. It's got to be him. He's also a big believer in, I guess, libertarian politics and the freedom to do what it is you need to do to make your way in this world. So could be an interesting one. The country's highest profile pimp, who I'm assuming is that Dennis Hoff dude, is running for a seat in the Nevada legislature. There you go. Domino's keep doing these things. Who greenlights these things? Is Domino's not the company that's offering the pizza insurance, meaning if you drop your pizza, if you drive away with it on the roof of your car, they'll replace the pizza at no extra cost as long as you can bring the pizza carcass in? I've never once done that. Never dropped a pizza. I was like, is there this much of a demand for that kind of thing in these situations? Do people really drop pizzas all that often? They keep coming up with these weird sort of shticky advertising campaigns. And the latest is this. Domino's is now fixing potholes in communities across the country. Yeah. Amazing what you can do with day-old breadsticks, I suppose. Are you in favor of this? I got to admit, I get really freaking angry. I get really freaking angry about the potholes at the end of my street because they've been there for a very long time, and I'm like hitting them. Sometimes I can get around them. I can swerve a little bit, but that involves going a little bit outside of my lane, and that's not always a safe proposition. So sometimes when I'm leaving my home, I just have to eat it and do the damage to my car that I know this pothole is going to do. And I pay a lot of taxes like the rest of you. I give a significant chunk of my income up to the government so things like that pothole can be fixed. And on the one hand, I'm just glad that the idea of Domino's fixing it is an eventuality that could really happen because I'd like to have it fixed. On the other hand, I don't feel like the government should be let off the hook by a pizza company. Anyways, we'll get into more of this a little later on. Right now, though, I want to talk to you about this interesting legal precedent that's been set by a SoundCloud rapper, or is being set by a SoundCloud rapper. The SoundCloud rapper is somebody that we all know, that kid in your school or that guy at the club who tells you, yeah, I rap, you should check me out on SoundCloud. And that's probably the last thing that you should do if you value your time at all. But this is an interesting one. An 18-year-old kid from New Jersey did more than just annoy everyone within earshot with his do-it-yourself tracks. He might have landed himself a 10-year prison sentence. How is this even possible? Well, the guy's name is Michael Schmidt. He goes to James Caldwell High School in Jersey, and he posted a song on February 24th, 10 days after the shooting in Parkland, Florida. And it included threatening language like, pull my gun, kill your effing head, now you're dead, go to sleep. Well, Schmidt got reported, and a SWAT team showed up to the school and put it on lockdown. He was charged with creating a false alarm, and he's facing 5 to 10, just like many real rappers. So in a way, he kind of made it, I suppose. Maybe not, because he's not exactly soaking up the free publicity. He said, quote, "They painted me as a school shooter, and that's terrifying. It's scary to me that I'm being associated with that because of this rap song." So what do you think? In this day and age, should this kid go to jail for a possible 10 years for having created a false alarm? He created a situation where a SWAT team was called to his school. That's a very real thing. On the other hand, if we're at a place in our society where we've begun censoring the creative output of 18-year-old kids and censoring music, well, where then are we now? Can open, worms everywhere. Curious to know, yes or no, should this kid go to jail, or should this be let to slide? At ADSXE on Twitter and Instagram, weigh in. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again.